Ladies and gentlemen, I know this YouTube channel has been talk about a lot of disabilities, but as I told you, we're also going to mix in some other subjects. And tonight, we mix in sports. And sports is obviously a big topic of conversation, not because of what's happening on the field, but because of what's not happening on the fields. Let's take a look at baseball and basketball, for example. First, basketball had their season stopped in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, we all know with Rudy Gobert and the whole touching of the microphones and that. But I wonder what the future of sports is going to be. Of course, Commissioner Adam Silver has not come out and said that the NBA will do X, Y, or Z. But I think whatever comes out of this, I do think from a business perspective, you are going to see a agreement in these collective bargaining agreements. That's a pandemic plan. Like, here's what we do if something like this should arise again. Now, you take a look at basketball. You think about the teams that are in the playoffs, have had great seasons. What do you do with them? Do you just start the playoffs over? Do you let them practice? Do you let them play the final 10 games? Do you let all the teams play the final 10 games? And if you don't, then what do you plan to do with the season ticket holders? What do you plan to do with the players? What do you plan to do with the MVP awards? There's just a whole mindset of things. It was announced today that Roger Goodell will be announcing NFL picks from his basement. Boy, I'd like to see that basement. I mean, this is unbelievable territory that sports is in, but I do believe baseball and basketball are going to be the ones that lead the path forward. Now, let me explain to you why that is. Because baseball is a unique scenario because they haven't started. So Commissioner Rob Manfred is in New York, obviously, with his advisors, and they're looking at Arizona. And if you remember back in 2015, they split up the 30 teams from Florida. So not the whole MLB is not in Florida, which, again, in my opinion, was a bad move. I think it's beneficial to have MLB teams in one spot, but that's just my opinion. They went to 15 and 15. So what they're saying now is they're going to have tentatively empty stadium games start at the end of May. Now remember, this is all tentative. And they would use the Arizona spring training facilities, which I think is a great idea because it'll bring back some form of normalcy. But what I want to know from the powers that be is, what do you plan to do with the schedule? I've heard the idea tossed around, you're going to play 7-inning doubleheaders. How do you plan to add the pitching depth? Do you add extra men to the roster just for the first 2 months of the season while you're playing neutral site games? Again, same situation. What do you do with the season ticket holders? The London series has already been canceled. Interleague has already been canceled, and I know there's been a lot of people that have spoken out against Interleague, or they at least want the formality of the DH or the pitcher spot as a hitter in both leagues. I know that's been talked about. And oh, by the way, the MLB is coming up probably into one of the most contentious CBA labor times in its history since the players' strike back in '94, in which I believe the Yankees would have won the World Series in '94. That team was playing well that year, and then of course we all know with the Mariners and the Yankees. But I think my number one question is, how does this affect the business of sports in terms of the presentation of it? How are you going to social distance the players in the dugout? How are you going to assure the safety of all the players, coaches? And I do think it's going to come back to normal. It's going to come back to normal as far as the individual cities. When the time is right, everything's going to come back to normal. But I always said on this YouTube channel, we're not just going to talk disabilities. We're going to talk defining moments in sports. and in general. And I do believe this is going to be a defining moment in sports, because I do think we are going to see pandemic prevention plans. I do think we're going to see a lot more contingency plans. I mean, look at the Masters. That's been postponed until the fall. All the horse racing has been. What does this do to the Vegas odds? I mean, all that stuff, we got to wait and see. But as far as my baseball preview, here's my quick trip around the bases. I think the Yankees are going to be fine. I think Aaron Boone. I think they might get off to a slow start with Garrett Cole, and I think Judge might get off to a slow start with whatever injury he's got. But I think the Yankees are going to be fine. I think the three most interesting teams, if you're new to the game, or if you happen to have, MLB Network or whatever, I think the three teams you want to watch are the New York Mets, you want to watch the Boston Red Sox, and you want to watch the Houston Astros. The number one reason why is because obviously people associated with those teams were implicated in the largest cheating scandal since the Black Sox scandal. Two of the new managers have very little experience on a day-to-day basis, if any, managing a major league team, with the exception of Dusty Baker. His finest hour, Dusty Baker, is probably Steve Bartman, Wrigley Field, when he coached the 2003 Cubs. He made a stop in Cincinnati. Then, of course, he had a stop in San Francisco where he let his children in the dugout. And if you remember, his little son, Dusty, was saved by J.T. Snow, which is a moment that will go down in baseball history forever. But how will the league respond to the Astros? How will the league respond to, obviously, the report about the Red Sox that was supposed to come out sometime around opening day, which was supposed to be in March? What do they plan on doing there? So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I want to hear from you about this topic. My question leaving this YouTube channel today for this episode is, how do you think the coronavirus will change sports and shape future collective bargaining agreements? Once again, thank you for taking the time to listen.